Hi, a very good morning and welcome to yet another live from the House of Clay. Today's topic is the power of right exposure and creating optimal learning spaces for our children's development. I am so thrilled to have you all explore this crucial topic, which is very important for nurturing environments for our children's growth and development. So, we together will look at creating such spaces for our children today. With me is our in house expert, child psychologist, Meghna Yadav. She will discuss the topic with us today. Welcome, Meghna.
Thank you so much, Kinshuk, for having me here. It's a pleasure to sit again with pertinent topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meghna. So, as employees working from home or on a hybrid model, it suits us well. We say that we are more productive, we save time on travel, but it is essentially not the same for our children. So that they face a challenge being stuck at home. However, nurturing the environment we may try to create, or how much love and care we give them, but still, uh, it is very difficult for them to grow and learn in absence of peers. So let's understand more today from Meghna and come together in this discussion to find a solution that ensures that our children have an overall growth and social development.
I very well second that, Kinshuk, because I think, especially after pandemic, the work style of parents are changing. Parents are actually having hybrid models at times. Sometimes it is more or less the duration of work hours is flexible and we are actually living in a new kind of work setup for parents and also the new kind of exposure that children are getting through this work setup of parents. Let's listen from each other. Let's hear it more. I would love to take up questions from parents. In fact, you can call me greedy on that because the more we hear from parents, the better it is for me to learn from the perspective of parents. Though myself being a mommy of two, I sincerely feel that when I hear directly from parents, it's a great learning for me as well. But let's hear it. I'm all here to try my best to answer your questions in my limited capacity.
I'm sure, Meghna. So to begin with, if you can help us understand that how does a physical and a social environment influence the overall development of a child?
Very, very important question to begin with, Kinshuk. I will try my best to explain about the development, but before we enter into these two domains that you highlighted, physical and social, I would request everybody present over here who are listening to us is to understand that the development of a child is actually happening in multiple domains. We cannot say that right now a child is only developing in physical when the child is jumping or when the child is running. The development is happening only in physical. The whole body coordination that I need to take this step from here to here so that I land safe while I'm jumping, the cognition is involved. When the same child is calling another child and saying, "Hey buddy, come, let's jump from this place to that place," the language is getting involved. So the jumping part is not only the legs, it's actually the whole body, the rhythmic motion of the body. So it involves the fine and the gross motor skills. So it looks like that this is one jumping episode of the child. But parent dear, don't forget that it is actually the whole domain of human brain that is revolving around this one single act of jumping. So first thing that we need to understand that development is balanced in nature. It is actually not skewed in the sense that only one part of development is happening even in day-to-day activities. But since you have highlighted about physical and social, um, I will try to explain to parents in the sense that there is a concept we call as a social climate, and then there is a concept which is known as social atmosphere uh, when it comes to social development of children. So, all those parents who have young children, right from infancy to teenage, I would say, this is applicable to all. So, the social atmosphere is one that involves the direct interactions. So, imagine a child at home, and the child is getting interactions with daddy, a mommy, probably a home based nanny, or grandparents. Even if we imagine a rich family like this, and then the child is getting interactions with all these adults on one basis. Sometimes mommy talks to the child, then the nanny talks to the child, then grandmommy talks, and then the granddaddy talks. So the child is creating a social atmosphere, which is I am interacting directly with you. Now, the concept of social climate is that not only I am interacting with you, I am having one on one conversation with you, but then there are other noises coming into my ears. There are other movements that are happening around me. And that all gets into the concept of social climate. So, a combination of social atmosphere and social climate results into the social development of the child. We need both of these, the social atmosphere where the child is getting the direct exposure of socialization, that means conversations and all, and then the social climate where the indirect exposure of socialization is getting into my ears, my body, my brain, so that I develop my emotions, I develop socially. Now, we have to compare this from home based atmosphere, as well as a group based atmosphere, as well as professional atmosphere. I will do it as and when we progress our conversation. But I wanted to start with this note that social development requires the opportunity from both perspectives, social atmosphere as well as social climate. When it comes to physical development, kinship, the most important thing that we need to keep into mind is that physical development, like explained in the beginning, is rooted in multiple aspects of development. It is a multidimensional approach. But one thing for sure about physical development, it is heavily rooted in exposure. The more the physically active environment around me, the higher will be the physical development in children. And physical development has a very specific age rooted development that we need to observe also. For example, when the baby is born, the baby is actually more dependent on the parents. Gradually, the baby starts sitting and then crawling, then walking, then running, then jumping. So, all of this is a progression in physical development. And then the body grows, we go bigger. And because it is so apparent to human eyes, it is very easy to see the physical development from the perspective of growth and development. But we'll explore it more as and when we progress our conversation on this beautiful topic.
Sure, Magda. I think you've explained it so well, and it brings me back to a sentence that I have read so many times that development and growth don't happen in silos. So it is the same for children also. So one activity that they do is encompassing the total comprehensive development of a child. So true.
So
So, Meghna, when we are talking about creating these optimal learning spaces and multidimensional growth of children, is it really possible to have such a setup at home? And if yes, how does a parent like me do it at home?
mm, Kinshuk, the answer is not straight yes or no. We have to understand it from the stage specific development, as well as we have to understand it from the aspect of the restrictions, if I can use that word, that home has, or that any professional setting has, or any public setting has. So, not a very straight answer. I'll try my best to explain to you that physical development or social development or emotional development, whenever we talk from the perspective of development of children, uh, I think it is well established now in this conversation in last few minutes that it is multidimensional. You have very well put it that it is not happening in silos, right? So what I'm trying to say is that because home is the first exposure for the child, home is the most important institute that a child attends soon after birth. It is very important to give the right kind of exposure for development in various domains like cognition, language, socio-emotional, and physical. But then there are limitations to it. And what are the limitations? That in the beginning, when the child is restricted to a place because till the time muscles gain the strength to sit, to crawl, to walk, till that time it is a great idea that the child is well attended, the child has exposure of various sounds when mommies and daddies talk to the child. Child has the concept of safe connections that only parents can provide. So that becomes the foundation of development of other domains. So if you ask me, in first few months of life, is a home a great idea? Actually, there is no substitute to that. If you ask me, home is the best place for development when it comes to children who are newborn. But as and when children grow, this whole dynamics gets changes, and it is true for all of us that we have our homes with limited four walls, we have limited exposure in terms of people around children. In fact, I was recently reading the study about how India especially is migrating from those big houses with joint families with many people around a child. Now children, especially in urban India, are growing in nuclear families with more or less two adults, mommy and daddy, around with one help of a nanny probably at home. Now, if you see this kind of setup, which is true for most of us, as parents also, I have done pretty much the same for my elder one. It was more or less me, my husband, and him. Well, we were blessed to have grandparents, but not every home has that. So, more or less, this kind of setting where the child is revolving around the adult, then I would say home is a great idea, but it will not suffice. It is not enough. Then the child needs more exposure in terms of peers, in terms of more opportunities to run around, to grow, more opportunities to have interactions that are real life interactions with peers, not the virtual world, the real world I'm talking about. So, in that, if you ask me from that perspective, I would be very honest in telling you, both as a mommy as or as a professional, that home is not the ideal place to raise your children in first 3 or 6 years of life, because once I start crawling, once I start walking, then I need more space, mommy and daddy. It's so simple for children. So I would be very cautious in answering your question that is this enough? I would say in the beginning, yes, that's all a child needs. First few months, it is important to invest in that safe and secure feeling given to the child, because that becomes the base, the foundation on which the future development happens. But after that, the most important thing to do is to ensure that we give the right kind of exposure to the children through various means, not only a home. But of course, there is no substitute of home based care, and there is no substitute of the safe and secure environment that a home provides. So, if I have to summarize my answer, I would say with the exposure at home, there are other agencies that need to get involved at the right time of development when we are talking about holistic development of children. And it is not this or that, it is actually this and that. So apart from home, we need to build on through other agencies for holistic development of children.
Got it, Meghna. Thank you so much. Yeah, I also feel like as a parent, I think I am the best judge and the best caretaker for my child. But yes, I cannot give my child the environment at home because I do not have enough people. And as you rightly said, we have moved to a nuclear family setup. The child
Yeah.
thrives much better, learns more life skills in the presence of others than a closed environment of just the parents. So, yeah, very true.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
I seriously see this while working with children day and night, and I see the impact as well.
so, Meena, I surely do understand the need for a formal learning structure or a more structured learning environment rather. But also help me understand to how to strike the right balance between providing the structure and also allowing freedom to my child to stimulate creativity and independent thinking. Will sending the child to a daycare or a preschool setup early in age restrict the child from developing creativity and independence?
Mm, long answer, but important question. So allow me to spend some minutes on this. So all the parents who are listening, if you want to really understand the science behind development, and if you want to have the answer of this question more from the scientific perspective, let's understand that, as I said in the beginning, first 6 to 8 months of life, no other agency required except home based care, because first 6 to 8 months of life are so important when it comes to development of foundation, and the brain of the child is not yet ready to get exposed to multiple people around, or it's not yet ready in terms of absorbing the environment, right? So for that, it is a great idea that parents give a lot of love and care, and I always say nobody can do it except parents and sibling and grandparents. So this family structure that India is blessed with, I think works wonderfully. After working in various countries, I think myself being an Indian parent, I feel we are blessed. We might take it for granted, but we should not, because the strong family threads in India actually help a lot in developing children. So first thing is we need to understand that, especially in first 6 to 8 months, it's a month, it's a period, in fact, where parents need to just provide enough love, care, safety, and security to the child. Love, care, safety, and security. Yeah, but uh, as child grows, that's when this concept of striking a balance comes. Till that time, it's easy. I love my child. I have to just pour my love in 100 different ways, in 100 different times of the day. It's easier, to be honest. The moment the child grows, and then the child comes into the real world, trying to understand the social norms, the emotions that are going through in human body and soul, the developmental aspects, my body growing, my needs are growing. For this, striking a balance is easier said than done. It's tough. So, what we need to take into account is that, again, I'll come back to my first few points, that if we think from the perspective of socio emotional development, social climate, and social atmosphere, the way I was trying to explain. So, I would say, if you are taking your children to a professional setting, like a daycare or a preschool or a peer group setting, it is important to take into note that social climate can be given at home, where I make sure that I interact with my child. There are mommies, there are daddies I have seen spending hours with the child, interacting with them, get very involved parenting, if I can say that. But that is actually fulfilling the need of social atmosphere. That means the the direct exposure of socialization. What the child is hearing in a group setting, in a professional setting, builds the social climate that, hey, I might not be directly talking to you, but I hear two other children talking to each other, and the negotiation is going on about a toy. And I'm learning a lot just by listening to that conversation that's happening at my back. And this is the very rich social climate that the professional setting provides. And trust me, Kinshuk, it is very difficult to provide that at home when the home is filled with adults. Yeah, so I would say, uh, just giving this example of socio emotional development, there are certain things that home based care can offer, but then there are certain things that only the group based care can offer. Social climate is an ideal example for that. That when I hear multiple conversations around me, that's when I understand the whole understanding of social development and socially accepted norms. Similar way, if you ask me for physical development, there is a concept, and there are wonderful studies. In fact, I was reading a very beautiful study from 2013, and something that I loved reading. It's from Cart and Card. Uh, so, what the researchers highlighted about physical development is that physical activity was noted among children who are into home based care, and they are living with adults, I mean to say, very involved parenting. It's not that parents are not involved, and the very stimulating environment home. Parents have created a corner for the child, the room is decorated as per the child's age, there are ample opportunities for physical development. But when the same child was taken into group setting, which is more into a daycare or preschool, that's when the physical activity was recorded again. And trust me, even with ideal setup at home where parents have invested in developing an atmosphere which inculcates the dynamics of physical development, uh, I was not very surprised to read that through that study that actually, even with that, the physical activity which was happening in the group setting compared to the home based setting was very, very high. It was actually three times higher when children were in a group setting, even though it was 100% indoor. So, both places indoor, both places rich environments, but somehow because there were more children around, because there were more opportunities to run around, to talk, to move from one place to another. I get the block from here, no, no, this child snatches my boy, okay, I run again to get another block. All this natural atmosphere in group setting enhanced the physical development of children, simply because of the opportunities provided when peers interact with each other. So, I would say, to strike a balance, it's a great idea to give exposure to children in both the settings. Uh, Children in today's world are highlighting that they really need this kind of mixed setup somewhere around as early as they start crawling and walking. I leave the decision on parents because I always say to parents that you are the best judge for your child's needs. But if your child is giving you clear cut indication that I need more than what my home can provide, it is a great idea to search for a quality rich program. It is a great idea to build a peer for the child. It's a great idea to have a social bubble, the people around you, where you take your children outdoors, where you take your children for play dates also, because that's very important in terms of development. I'm sorry for this long answer, but I really wanted to produce certain studies as well as real life examples to understand this.
Right, Meghna, I think you've made yourself very clear. But help me understand, while you say it is important to have a structured environment, and it'll be more helpful for the child to be around peers and be in a formal setting like a daycare or a preschool. But I think a lot of parents here are also asking how can they set up such a structure at home. While I understand peer learning is important, probably a structure like this can help at home, can supplement what they learn at school, and maybe reinstate those ideas with children. Is it safe to say that?
Well, Kinshuk, I would say it's a good idea to learn the lessons from what is already being done has given us great results. And for that, it's a good idea to look back to our own childhood, with various human studies or social studies. In fact, the social neuroscience, that's a very great field, giving us great results when it comes to human psychology and studies related to that. So if I go through some of the recent studies under social neuroscience, it's a very good indication for us that the best mantra when it comes to developing a stimulating environment for the child, I have done that as mother also, is to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Let's not enter into finding those I would say funky, if that is the right word, funky
Yeah,
stuff
nothing
for
really fancy
children.
is required. Very
Yeah,
basic.
exactly. So if you ask me, the way you and me were developed, where our mommies were cooking in the kitchen and next to her, we were playing with kitchen dabbas, spoons and forks, that was a very stimulating environment, Kinshuk. For me as a child, I will learn the concept of classification. I will learn the concept of organization when I'm segregating spoons from the forks. I really don't need the funky stuff around me. So I think I answered this question when you asked me in some of the previous webinars also about finding the right kind of resources for children. And I gave this study, I won't mind sharing it again here. That when children were observed in a lab setting where they were left in a very stimulating environment, and a new box of toy was given to them, and researchers were simply recording what is it that excites the child most, and the answer was actually not the toy but the box of the toy. So what I'm trying to say, children give us really clear indication that I as a child will create a world around me which is stimulating for me, provided you allow me to do that. Yeah, so I would heavily recommend to all the parents that when it comes to development in multiple domains, it is a good idea to keep it simple and keep it natural. So as much as you stay closer to nature in getting stuff for your child, as much as possible you stay natural in your parenting instead of tilting towards artificial parenting, I would say you are set. You need not to worry. So have the natural conversations around your children. Have a very natural response to your children when they ask you, "Oh, are you exhausted after a long day at work?" And the answer is yes. You better be. So yesterday I had a long day at work. By the time I reached home, my children were slept, and I felt sad. I'm sure they must have felt sad as well. I hope so. So today morning they said, okay, we didn't see you yesterday, and my very natural response to that was, yeah buddy, I missed you. But sometimes my work takes over my family. There are days when I have to invest time over there, and this is a natural response. So I would say to all the parents, if you really want to build a stimulating environment, a wonderful idea is to keep it simple, and on top of that, keep it natural as much as possible. Do that. But then please don't forget one concept. There is no way on this earth, Kinshuk, and we have unfortunately seen that under pandemic, that there is no way an adult can become a child to a child. The adult brain functions very differently than the brain of a child, and hence there is no way naturally you can become a peer to your child. I always say to parent, if you're a parent, stay a parent, because the child needs children. That's one thing that you need to provide naturally. The group setting, the socialization aspect of it, you have to find more children around your child.
True, Meghna. Thank you so much for that. Thinking from the perspective of a new parent, that has been on mind, and I see a lot of questions also coming in around that topic. So, how good or or what are the pros and cons of sending a young child to a formal facility like a daycare, and how like what is the right age to start with something like this? Will it be an emotional stress for my child, or how will my child regulate that stress? Does it come naturally, or what I can do help the child settle better there?
Very child specific answer for that, Kinshuk, but I'll try my best to give the general answer. So, my first disclaimer while answering this question to all the parents, that it is a very child specific decision that you need to take. So, first, very important thing that I would say is that understand your child's needs, and then decide on the right time to start a formal setup for your child. I can give you a general guideline, but that general guideline might not apply to your child. So take a very informed decision. If you are confused, no harm in taking one-on-one suggestions from your pediatricians or from child psychologists, or the school authorities where you are taking your child to, or the daycare authorities. So connect with right sources so that you know your answer. But in general, what we recommend is that for 6 to 8 months, no formal setup required for a child's brain functioning. The whole setup is enough, which is provided at home, provided it has all the four elements: love, care, safety, and security. Uh, if the child is the firstborn in the family, then the social requirements are higher, in the sense that I do not have a peer at home. So if it is firstborn, or if it is a single child at home, then I would heavily recommend parents to start thinking about social development in children. In such cases, as soon as your child is ready to mingle with other children, as soon as your child is ready to walk around, or is ready to understand the concepts of social dynamics, it is a great idea. Roughly, we see this period anywhere between 8 months to 18 months. It is a very diverse age group, but this is what we see. Sometimes children are quickly ready around 8 months. But sometimes children take time to get ready to enter into a formal setup. Till 18 months, also, we do see some children struggle. So I leave the decision on parents. Most of the time, parents come to me around second birthday of the child and ask this question. And to all those parents who have celebrated second birthday, my answer is, it's a great time. Your child is indicating you very clearly, yes, I need more children around me. My energies are getting built up if you keep me with only the adults. So for socialization aspect, I would say it is a huge range, anywhere between 8 months to 18 months. We see that children are asking for need of socialization from a larger group setting, not only from adults. For physical development, like I said, I gave you the example of the studies. If your home has enough opportunities to explore the world through fine motor skills, through gross motor skills, then it's a great idea. Keep doing that. But if you think that your home is not enough to provide those kind of activities, or where the children are getting involved in physical activities like bottom, we call it like bottom up stress regulating system, in the sense that my body below my thighs, if they get into the movement, then my whole body gets into the rhythmic motion, and my brain releases the all the built up energy, all the stress is gone, and that's when I learn most as a child. So if that is not happening at home, it's a great idea to start ASAP, I would say. As soon as your child is crawling or walking, start, because physical development requires a space to jump, requires peers to see, and then I imbibe and I learn. The normal data about how children learn sports, I'm not talking about the professional part of sports, but children learn sports in childhood only by watching and playing with peers. They don't require these hobby classes or so, because trust me, their peers train them, be it cricket, be it football. Children learn from each other. So that's what I'm trying to put over here. In those cases, it's a good idea to start ASAP. For The areas of emotions, I would stay very cautious. There are some children, and emotional wiring is very natural wiring, Kinshuk. There is no one particular way of emotional development. So if your child is giving you clear cut indication that I feel unsafe, I cry, I am not feeling safe and secure when you drop me to a daycare or so, I would heavily recommend parent to not take that lightly, and do discuss with the right professionals about settling in. There has to be a process of settling in. There has to be a process where you are preparing your child that mommy and daddy will be away for 3 hours, 6 hours, or 9 hours, whatever you choose for your child. And that is very important to take note of. That child is giving you very clear indication that this is my safe place or not. And if a child is telling you very clearly that this is not my safe place, blindly go by the indication of the child. Do not think that I should send my child because my child will become strong or my child needs to get this exposure.
Got it, Meghna. I have a lot of questions, so
Oh,
I'm
let's
also in.
take. I wish we could take earlier, but no, nothing.
Yeah, so I'm just
Let's start.
bringing them in my questions as well. So I have this particular point raised by parents of 3-year-old to 13-year-old, which is interesting, saying that the child doesn't seem very happy at school, is lost among his or her own thoughts. So and the parent doesn't know what to do about it. So this is from a 13-year-old child's parent as well, and a 3-year-old's parent also. So this is a huge range, different mindsets, different stages of development. So can you
So
explain that?
the children are not feeling safe and secure in the professional setting. Am I understanding the question right?
Yes, and,
Yeah.
and they don't
And
talk
then
much about
parents
it.
are
They are
asking
lost
what
in
to
their own
do.
thoughts.
Ah, okay. For a 3-year-old, the answer is different. For a 6-year-old, it's different. For 9-year-old, it's different. And for 13-year-old, it's different. So let's try to simplify this. I'm just thinking, how do I simplify this? 3 to 6-year-old children giving you clear cut indication that I'm not feeling safe and secure. The reasons can be rooted in multiple things. It might be just the change in physical setting. It might be the 1 or 2 episodes in the beginning during settlement period that didn't allow the child to settle, and it might also be rooted in the responses of the parents also. So for 3 to 6-year-old, I would say, uh, before you pull the plug, before you take the child totally out of that professional environment and find something else for the child, a good idea is to do a thorough research. Thorough research means you go back to the authorities of the providers. Like, if you are sending your child to a daycare, if you're sending a child to a preschool, or you are sending your child to any professional setting, right? And the child is refusing to go through various means, then it is a good idea to highlight that to the providers. Please go and talk, be it a center director, be it a school principal, whatever designation it is. I would heavily recommend you to stay connected. Open communication is the key over here. Go and talk and highlight that my child is actually not feeling great when I drop my child in the morning. The open communication will help you to dig deeper the real cause, and if the real cause is rooted in 1 or 2 episodes that happened in the past, a good idea is to work with the child to take that memory of out of the child. To A good idea is to really understand that I might have to start again in terms of settlement. You might have to ask the providers that allow me to sit in the classroom for a few more days. Probably you need to be available in the reception a little more, so whenever the child is getting cranky or uneasy, it's uh, it's the feeling that the child gets that, hey, my mom is just a call away, or my daddy is right here. So I would say 3 to 6 years, it is a great idea to open up the channels of communications, dig deeper into the real causes. It is a very child specific decision that you need to take. And on an average, we see that children end up settling either in first week in this age group, 3 to 6 years, or they take longer, around 3 to 6 months also. So there is no one timeline where we can say that okay, by 18th day your child will be settled. Generally we see that on an average it takes around 21 to 26 days to settle, but it goes up to 3 to 6 months also. If there is a settled child, that means your child is already going to the place for a year or 2 years, and then suddenly started that, hey, I don't want to go, that cannot be taken lightly. That has to be discussed more thoroughly, and that is something that you really need to involve a professional, in the sense that probably a clinical psychologist or a child psychologist to take up this decision. For older age group children, I would say generally we don't see a pattern between 8 to 10. Children rarely comment on this, but if they are doing so between 8 to 12, I would rather say, Kinshuk, majority of this is rooted in pressures. Actually, it is not the academic pressure. Actually, it's not the teachers or the adults. It is more or less rooted in having a feeling of victimization. And parent dear, this is more true than ever in today's world, that bullying is something that our children between the age group of 8 to 12 struggle a lot. It happens anywhere, be it bus ride from home to school, be it a park, be it a sports period in the school, even during recess or meal times. Children do face bullyism, and bullyism leaves a mark on your child's psyche. Don't allow that to happen. Children who were bullied between this age group tend to have lower self-esteem. Do not allow this to happen on longer duration. Sit with your child, talk to your child, start with your own stories where you got bullied, and then your child will open up. Asking questions like, hey, what's going on in this school, will not fetch you the right answers, so don't take that path. Share your own stories where you felt that bullying was unfair. Even from your office, from your professional life, if you see something like that, please keep sharing with this age group of children. They open up more. But if there are children who are into teens like 13 years and all, for sure bullyism plays a key role. But around this time we see one more pattern that I would request parents to take note of. When I work with teenagers, I see this is the pressure of academic performance. So please, parents, take note that children saying no for schools or so might be rooted in a parental expectation. Check. And I'm not saying that you are doing it knowingly. Sometimes we end up doing it unknowingly as parents. We end up putting a pressure on our children through our expectations. So check the kind of conversations you have at home. It is a good idea to give the right kind of academic exposure to your children, but it is not a good idea to give them the goals of academic exposure, in the sense you should achieve this, this is the mark you should get, this is a mark or the grade that is expected. And if they make mistakes, if the grades are getting into the downward direction, it is a good idea to communicate with the authorities. So apart from bullyism around this age, especially teenagers in India going through a lot of academic pressure, they might say to you at the very end, after going through this journey of stress for a long time. So be cautious about it. I hope I could answer this question, Kinshu, for parents.
Yeah, of course, Meghna. I think when we are talking about exposure, exposure is not only outside of the home or outside in the environment, but exposure to such communications for children within the family is also very important. And the child knows when to raise an alarm and knows that the alarm will be is being heard by the parent and the parent is acting upon it. That also is very important for the confidence building of the child, and many such complicated situations that he or she may come across in the world. So that
Yes.
exposure is within the house itself also.
True, true. And the way a parent responds, this defines the future. Whether your
That's
child
right.
will come back to you for the problems. I always say when your 3-year-old is coming to you, Kinshuk, and saying, "Hey, Amma, this happened in this school. I did this act earlier. Also, I'll do this again." That imagine that you are just rolling a chapati and your child comes from the back, "Amma, this happened," and then you have to stop rolling your chapati, turn your back towards your child and say, "Hmm." Then you can continue rolling. But this one gesture is actually giving an indication to your child that, God forbidden, tomorrow if you get bullied, God forbidden, if some mishap happens in school or so, a teenager, when you are going through the pressure of academics, come back to me. My listening ears are there. So invest in developing this bond because this will go a long way.
Correct. Thank you so much, Meghna. One more question that has come from different parents is about one that the child is very active and doesn't sit at a place for long. So, how to explain this concept of school or a setup like this where they are there to learn? So, how to explain that concept to the child and the child behavior in such a setting where there have been episodes of the child hitting other children and the same with the teacher as well. So, what does a parent do in such a situation?
What's the age group mentioned here, Kinshuk? Is there any age group
Um,
mentioned, or it's just the question in
I
general?
have this from 4-year-old, 3-year-olds parents.
Okay, 3 to 6 years. I'll try to answer this question from that age group.
Yeah,
Trust me, in child psychology, for us, children develop every week. So this is on our fingertips that we take it more into account from the age and gender also at times. So parents, I would request, if you are asking question, please take it that I'm right now answering this question from the perspective of 3 to 6 years. So 3 to 6 year children not understanding the expectations of the social setting, like I have to sit and do a thing, I have to have a tabletop activity for these many minutes, or this is expected of me to take turns in a social setting, I have to wait for my turn, or I end up hitting or so when things are not going in right direction. All of this is actually a process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. So 3 to 6 year old, I would say, when I work with the team members in professional settings, let's take example of Clay. That when I work with the facilitators or the curriculum people or the people who work directly with children, and when I run the training programs, this is one thing that I always end up saying, that this is a journey. The destination is to prepare the child for the world, but this is very important to understand that every single day the learning happens, every single day or every single activity is a way to learn the concept. So sometimes the learning is quicker, sometimes learning takes its own time. So the very first thing as adults around children we need to understand is that each child is unique and there are unique dispositions that we see from children. So first thing is, stop comparing. Stop comparing that, oh, the child, this child is able to sit for 10 minutes, how come my child is not able to sit, right? So this thing we need to take out before we enter into the real answer of this question. When children are exhibiting us the traits that require our attention, it is a good idea to develop a data for your child. And trust me, this is what most of the psychologists must be doing around you. And this is something I train parents and I tell them, hey, you are child psychologist, right? A parent is a child psychologist, you can do these things at home. So I would heavily recommend to take a piece of paper and pen, put it on your refrigerator or somewhere which is it is easily available, like high traffic area in your home. And you just have to create one simple chart which is antecedent, behavior, and consequence. ABC is what we call. It is a very simple task, you can do it. Antecedents means, if my child is having a particular behavior of hitting or particular behavior where I'm asking a child to sit and like clean up the mess and my child is just not listening. What is it that was happening before the behavior? B is the actual behavior, that my child threw himself on the floor and howling, or my child ended up hitting me as a parent, or ended up throwing the stuff towards the wall, whatever it is. And then the consequence, what exactly you did. And I would say this kind of data will help these parents to understand that the child is having a pattern. And if you see the pattern, sometimes it is coming out that I can hear you in three things, but I cannot hear you in six things. That means probably as a parent, you are giving me a lot of instructions. I followed your instructions twice, but then I'm done with it. So probably the parent will get an idea what is it that is causing. I did this exercise with many parents, 700 plus parents, Kinshuk, and trust me, the pattern that came out was my child is showing tantrum more in late evening hours, around 8, 8:30. Why so? Because the child was not taken out for play during evening hours. So, the release of energy between 5 to 6:30 p.m., I always say to parents, try not to keep your child indoors. If weather permits, please take them out, allow them to run around, play with other children. This is actually detrimental if we do not allow our children to release their energies. And uh, those of you who work with children in professional settings, I always say, like teachers, or those of you who have the experience of working in large group setting of children, please note that sometimes it is a sensory overload also. So sometimes when it is too much of a stimulation for children, that's when children lose the track. That's when they are not able to tell you that, hey, I'm exhausted of this overload of sensory stimulation. But then it is high time we need to sit with children in smaller groups. We have to see that this large group setting is not working for children, then we have to shift them to a smaller group setting, more of one-on-one care or more of a small group care. Probably that helps, but this is something that has to be observed first to answer the question.
Got it, Meghna. We have a question about screen time affecting infant development. I would request the parent here to go back to our last webinar, which was on Beyond Screen. You will have all the answers. And just a quick thing, that since you're talking about infants here, Meghna was the expert in the last webinar as well. And she says no screen time for a child who has not celebrated his or her second birthday. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can please go back and check that webinar. You will have a lot of insights there.
Yeah, please. I think that was a very wonderful discussion. Thanks to all those parents who asked the questions, because we could discuss some very good points in that also.
Right, Meghna. So, Meghna, I think we have covered broadly all the questions that have come in. But one thing from my side, so when we started our discussion with creating the right learning spaces for the children, and as you advised, a preschool or a daycare setting with a formal learning setup is the best that works for them. So, what is in it for the parents? So, does like what role do they have to play when it comes to providing the right kind of learning exposure? Does it end with finding the right preschool or daycare, or what can they do beyond this? A quick thing on that, please.
Kinshuk, it, I have seen this, and I can feel this as a mommy too. Once a parent, always a parent.
True.
So even if you send your children somewhere in a professional setting or so, I have worked with many mothers, especially the new mothers. Children are under the age of 6. They highlight this multiple times that, hey, Meghna, I drop my child to the daycare or the preschool or a professional setting. I know my child is in safe hands, but something in me keeps thinking about my child. And so I always congratulate these mommies. I say it's a wonderful feeling. Once a parent, always a parent. I'm talking to you right now, but just see how many times I have shared my own motherhood example. So somewhere in my heart, I am still connected with my children. I wait for them to be back home and connect with them. I look forward for weekends because I get more opportunity to spend time with them. So I would say parents, our role as parents will never end. It's as simple as that. But there are certain points that we need to do as parents. Our job is to provide the right kind of exposure to them. Our job is to find a professional setting for them which is a good match to their personality. So your child, if the child is uh, a lot more into physical activities, a lot more into group settings or socialization, probably your child will better fit into a setting which has many children, which has more activities around physical domain, more activities around outdoors or so. If your child is giving you clear cut indication that, hey, I am having a more interest in art and craft or tabletop activities, I'm more creative, I'm more into reading and writing, then probably you have to find a place which is stimulating enough when it comes to creative expressions. But the point over here, till the age of 6 or 7, till you celebrate the sixth or seventh birthday of the child, the ideal thing is to give the multi-domain exposure, because this is the time the child is realizing that, hey, this is my cup of tea, hey, I enjoy this more. So until and unless you give the exposure in multiple domains, you give the learning opportunities through multiple angles, you will not know the potential of the child. So for that, I would heavily recommend parents that your role is to find a quality rich program, especially if you have children under the age of 6, which is stimulating enough, but at the same time, please note that it has to be a safe environment. So the concept of safety has to be there in the provider's mindset. Health and safety is of paramount importance in this age. So I would say, please find a program which is a good combination of a stimulating environment through various learning resources, plus health and safety of children are well taken care of. There is an investment of training and development in the staff also. They understand the developmental milestones of children, then it's an ideal thing. But once you provide that, if you have found this something like this, if you have found a place like that, and then your child starts going, then the best thing that a parent can do is to stay connected and stay involved in the proceedings of the professional setup, in the proceedings of the daycare or the preschool that you have chosen, in the proceedings of the school that you have chosen, because that helps you a lot in maintaining a bond. So if you imagine this child at the center, then the parent, the provider, I mean the teachers, the facilitators, the managerial positions. So all of these work towards the child. So the child is in the center, the parent, the society, the providers. When all of them come together to serve the child, that's when the child gets the optimum amount of exposure that he or she deserves. So play your part of parenthood in get staying involved. Apart from that, I would say, parents, nobody can take your place for your child's life. Your child will have hundreds of friends. Your child can opt for hundreds of school in the environment, but nobody can take place of you. So having a natural flow of conversations in the home, having the concept that I don't need 24 hours with my child. Even if God has given me 24 minutes in a day with my child, I am physically, emotionally, and mentally present to my child. As long as you can do that, I think journey of parenting is beautiful. You will enjoy this most new, beautiful creation of God in your life. And just to end our conversation, Kinshuk, I'll tell that I'm right now working with many mothers who are going through emptiness syndrome because children are now going to their colleges, leaving the homes, going to the universities. And when I hear the journey of these mothers and daddies, trust me, I feel like it's a very small window that we have with our children. So parents, Please understand that very soon these children will say goodbye to us, and before that day comes, which they should take their own path, but before that day comes, it's a great idea to enjoy this journey of parenting. Trust me, the time will not come back to you, and please cherish this. So I think your role is to find the right place, but the journey won't end here. You need to stay connected with the providers, with the child, and enjoy this beautiful period.
Thank you so much, Meghna. I think this has been a really enriching discussion and reinforcing a lot of parenting ideas that we read about here, always coupled with the practical experiences that you've shared. So, thank you so much for your time.
My
For the
pleasure.
audience here, we will have to conclude the webinar now, but I hope you've gained some valuable insights into the power of right exposure and its impact on children's development. Please remember that by providing such an exposure and the right learning spaces, we can nurture and empower our children and actually prepare them better to thrive in an ever changing world. Of course, we all agree that the times have changed when we were younger, and today, what it is for our children is
I totally
better.
agree with you on that, Kinshuk. And parents, please understand. I said it multiple times during this conversation. I'll say it again, Kinshuk, that no matter how involved we are, no matter how devoted we are, or how natural we are when it comes to our parenting, there is no way an adult brain can become a child's brain. So the most important aspect that we need to keep reminding to ourselves, that as parents our job is to set up the stage, but to run the show, child needs children, the child needs exposure from other children, and please focus on that. I see that need more and more now in today's world, especially because the shift towards nuclear families, and many couples are having a very informed decision of keeping one child at home. If you have that kind of setup at home, I would heavily recommend parents to find a place where the child gets the right kind of atmosphere for socialization and a safe and secure environment. Because trust me, various studies we see that in future, uh, the requirements of leadership, the requirements of professional functioning will not only revolve around the academic knowledge, but actually will revolve around the group dynamics. How do you manage the teams? How do you communicate the key messages? How do you write the key messages in emails? So that training starts right now. And I would heavily recommend parents to keep that in mind.
Thank you so much for reiterating that, Meghna. Very true. Thank you all for joining us today, and we encourage you to continue these conversations within your families as well. Share your experiences with us, and if you have found any helpful strategies here, do implement them and share your results with us. We'll be more than happy to hear it, and yeah, to let's create a very good future. We can, as Meghna said, we have to set up the stage for our children, and they should be ready to run the show when they grow older. So wishing you a very happy parenting journey. Keep nurturing, keep learning, and keep shaping a brighter future for your children. Thank you so much.
Thanks a ton, Kinshuk. I thoroughly enjoy when parents ask questions, and my apologies if there were some questions that remain unanswered. But since it's a kind of a series that we try to bring to parents every month, I would request all the parents to join us next month or whenever the next webinar is happening. Stay tuned so that at least we will take up these discussions somewhere or the other for sure.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Meghna. Thank you for all the audience who have joined in. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a ton, Kinshuk. Pleasure. It's my honor to be present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, see you.